Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Panel to Panel, your show about comics and everything pertaining to the only comic book webcast that is, well, we don't know if the Batman Superman movie will ever be made now, thanks to Ben Affleck getting hurt and they're pushing it back, and I don't know. But I'm Spin Dash, and with me tonight are the Space Chief.
Hey, everybody.
And Jules.
Hi, everybody.
And our special guest tonight, Mr. Eric Grissom, the author of the indie comic Deadhorse, correct? I want to make sure I got it right. Deadhorse?
Yeah, the title is Deadhorse, but I like to make everything very confusing. So the first made it two books. The first book, you're right, is called Dead Birds, and the second book is called The Ballad of the Two-Headed Dog. You know, easy. Something easy to remember.
Easy stuff. Because, these crates had to come from somewhere, and there's a two-headed dog on the crates.
Yes, exactly.
But, Jules, you didn't know Ben Affleck hurt his leg? I know how much you love Affleck.
I'm so sad now. I might cry.
Apparently they pushed Batman and Superman.
I love Ben Affleck. I'm like a huge Ben Affleck fan, so I'm like devastated now.
Yeah, they pushed like Batman and Superman back to like 2016 now. So,
I didn't hear that.
Suck it up.
Crazy.
Suck it up. You're supposed to be Batman. Batman would make the movie.
Maybe they can make Wonder Woman. They have time to make Wonder Woman now, her solo film, and then they can, I don't know.
Well, I thought 2016 was them pushing it back so she could beef up to actually play Wonder Woman. Cause she's
I don't think it'll take that long.
But yes, Mr. Grissom is here tonight, so we want to talk about your book. So why don't you give us a little bit of history, a rundown of what your book is, and how you kind of came about writing it?
Sure. The book, I'll just give a brief sort of description about what it's about. It's about this one guy, William Pike. He's kind of down on his luck. He's seen better days, and he gets a key in the mail from his father. The problem is his dad's been dead for 40 years, and as soon as he gets the key, people start trying to kill him for it. So the book sort of follows him trying to unravel the mystery about what the key unlocks and what it has to do with his dad and why these people are trying to get him. We did 6, sort of separate issues, me and Phil Sloan, who's the artist in the book, and we have a colorist named David Halverson. So the three of us make it. We put 6 issues out, which make up the first book, and that's the one we talked about that's called Dead Birds. And we're just getting ready now to start the next book. So the first chapter of that is going to be coming out on March 5th. But we're taking pre-orders now, so if people are interested, they can go to deadhorsecomic.com. They can actually get either the book in print from Amazon or some stores, or they can read PDFs, or it's on Comixology. So there's a lot of different options on how you can read it.
Well, that means Megan will be able to get it because our co-host Megan is become addicted to Comixology. So we'll make sure Megan knows she can take it on her whirlwind tours.
Yeah, you can get the whole trade, which collects all of them as one book, which I think I sent you guys, or you can get the individual issues. So yeah, that would be great. Anybody, if you're out there, if you want to check it out. And if you go to our site, we have like a pay what you will for the PDF. So if you want to just check it out, maybe you're not sure, because you don't know much about it. And, to be honest, that's probably most of you. You just take it and you can try it for free. And if you like it, we encourage you to buy the next one.
Very cool. When you buy the trade, will all the extra artwork be in the back of the book, like it was in the one that you sent? When you buy the print one? Yeah. If you get the print one, it's like the digital and the print version of the collected edition have the same extra. So there's like some pin-ups and like a essay I wrote, and then some early character sketches. If you buy the individual issues, you don't get any of that. So that's only in the trade. Right, yeah, that was very cool. That was that part I enjoyed a lot. Was the
cool. Yeah, thank you. And we got some great, we had some great pinups too that people did for us. So it was really cool to see.
And the artwork is fantastic.
It's fantastic.
Yeah,
I think my walls.
He's amazing.
I think my wall's a little naked. I need that one of Sasquatch with why did Sasquatch not take swimming lessons? That's why. That needs to go on the spin wall.
That's awesome.
I love that character, by the way.
That was a guy who was a fan of the book. He's got Metro Cat Piss is his name, so I don't know where that comes from, but I think he's got a web comic, which the name escapes me, and he'll probably kill me for it. But yeah, if you Google that, you'll find something. Maybe it'll be him, maybe it won't, but either way, that's on you.
Now we were talking before the show, when we were reading it, we saw quite a few different things in it. Like I think Chief, you said like some Twin Peaks was in there a little bit. I was seeing kind of like Gravity Falls, that show on Disney Channel a little bit with the weird and the strange.
Raiders of the Lost Ark too, a little bit of
some Raiders.
adventure.
Yeah, I mean, those are both things. I mean, I'm not familiar with Gravity Falls, but I know Phil, the artist, is a fan of that show, and he's always trying to get me to watch it. But definitely Twin Peaks was a huge influence, on me growing up. And Raiders of the Lost Ark, I don't know if you noticed, there's like one panel in the first issue that we just, pretty much took from Raiders, where there's the suitcase on the bed, and Indy's throwing the gun, but in our book, he's throwing the compass. So yeah, that was a huge sort of influence, definitely.
So,
and I don't know if you're familiar, but it kind of reminded me of stuff like Johnny Quest and the Whistling Skull from DC. There's a couple of things. I don't know if that was intentional, but it kind of reminded me of those two things.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely I can see the Johnny Quest thing. I'm not familiar with the Whistling Skull, but I also know people have said, like, especially with the art style and stuff like Venture Brothers. I know Phil is a huge Venture Brothers fan. But yeah, the book is basically just a lot of different influences from, a lot of stuff from movies that, you mentioned Twin Peaks, so there's a lot of David Lynch and Stanley Kubrick, and there's a lot of stuff from video games too. Like some of the references that I sent Phil are actually from Ocarina of Time, because I'm in a former life I actually had a. Yeah. There was, I took the game, and found like a shot, and I think it's in the third issue. They're like walking over, near a waterfall, and that's the entrance to Zora's domain in Ocarina of Time. So yeah, it's all sorts of stuff. It's funny, like when I read it now, I could be like, oh yeah, here's where I started playing Skyrim, because all of a sudden the doors are round, and it's cool.
What I really enjoyed, I did when I was reading it, I loved the reference to John Borman. Because I'm a big John Borman fan, like Excalibur, and you referenced what it was, Zardoz.
Zardoz, yeah.
Zardoz.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great reference.
Yeah, there's a lot of Zardoz in there with Sean Connery's mankini type of thing that he wore. And the big godheads. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah.
People don't understand John Borman.
I'm a huge fan. Yeah, I'm a fan of his work as well, and I love that movie. And I'm like, you're the guy, because I'm putting this in here, and like, it's going to be me and some other guy that's going to get a kick out of it, and it's you, so thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't talked about that movie. I've talked about Excalibur on this show a few times, talking about Excalibur, because that's one of my favorite movies of all time, and John Borman is just a genius. I did enjoy that. And all these little references and all the references that I know that are going to be coming. The one that's still puzzling me, I guess, is the imagery with all the birds, all the bird heads. I don't know if you want to give anything away, but it's great imagery. It's creepy at times, and it's kind of like spoiler.
Yeah. I can't get too much into that, but you may see some of that in the second book about what that is and how that relates to the certain characters. I'll say that.
So with a book like this, where you're combining the mystery, the adventure, and the humor, how do you find that balance to where it all kind of just sinks in together with the characters? Because sometimes if you go too far one way, it could skew the other parts. How do you find that balance with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to sound like a cop-out, but I don't know. That's just sort of how it comes together when I'm writing. I mean, those are sort of the things that I'm drawn to anyway. I tend to be a fan of things that are funny, but also underneath are very sad. And these things come out, I guess, the balance is just sort of happening, or hopefully it happens, when the work is done. But I don't ever feel like, oh, I better make this part, different, or I got to build this part up. It just kind of balances out. I did and you guys read the first book and the new book too, right? Second Coming. Yeah, I felt like after I was done with that, I was like, well, maybe it's a little bit darker than the book before, but whatever. It's got to, it's the way the story is sort of unfolding in my head anyway. So I just kind of go with it.
One of those things where it's in here and your fingers are just on autopilot as it's in here. You're just kind of typing it out, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, I'm certainly planning things and thinking about things, but a lot of that sort of stuff, like, knowing, how to do the sort of the balance, that all that stuff, and as far as the heart, I think if characters don't have heart, then it's not really storytelling. It's more just like an intellectual exercise. I feel like you have to sort of connect in some way or make them, human, as opposed to just being sort of something to advance the plot or something.
Oh yeah,
I kind of get that because the guys that actually write or do Venture Brothers have said the same thing. That show seems so well planned out, like years in advance. It just seems like they've had this beginning, middle, and an end written out, and it all flows together so perfectly. But they claim that they just do episode to episode, and they just never know where it's going to come out, and it just flows. And that's what your book is. It works fantastically. It just seems it's really epic.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, with this book, I've always known the end. The end came pretty quickly. But a lot of the stuff that happens in the middle, certain things, characters will make different decisions just because that's sort of where the story wants to go. It's not, certainly not the characters are telling me what to do. It is that, but it isn't that, sort of at the same time. It just sort of happens. I mean, again, the ending, that's done, and that's what we're building towards. So that's sort of known, and that's always a fixed point in the distance. But things that happen in between, certain characters that I've, Edgar, who's one of the sort of the people that Pike meets along the way. When I first did it, he was just a guy at the bus station. He was not going to be in it any more than that one scene, but it was just fun to write, and then I brought him along, and then you started to see, different subplots for him and how he's going to fit in with everything. So stuff like that changes, pretty frequently.
But there's no George Lucas scene. There's no George Lucas scene where he's like, oh, we have the entire thing written, and then it's kind of like, no, you didn't.
Yeah,
you just
he didn't have the entire thing written. It's like, yeah, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. It's just that's where you end up with the prequels.
And everybody around him was like, yeah, George, you're right. You're a genius.
Sure. Great idea.
It's funny that
the whole movie has Senate hearings. It'll be great.
George Lucas killed his own creation. That's the thing. Kids today, I don't know why kids today don't know Luke Skywalker. They're like, oh, Anakin Skywalker. I'm like, not Anakin, Luke. Luke Skywalker.
I know.
Oh, it's so horrid. J.J. Abrams, if you're listening, do it right, J.J. Abrams. You better give us a good episode 7.
There's hope, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, my personal take on that, the prequels are so terrible. It's going to be better. Is it going to be as good as the original 3? Maybe, maybe not, but it's going to be better than what these last 3. So it's not going to make it worse.
I think so too.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
We're stuck with the prequels, so at least we'll have something that might be a little bit different.
Can we just get Jar Jar's head on a pike? I think everyone will be happy if the opening scene is just Jar Jar's head on a pike.
They pried it out of George's hands.
A slow pull back, and you finally figure out what you're looking at. It's his severed head.
Oh, Misa bad. Oh, Misa bad.
This isn't your daddy's Star Wars. Yeah.
No, it's not.
His blood dripping from the logo.
Now, I do have to ask, because I think my favorite character in the whole book is Sasquatch. And I need to ask, where did Sasquatch come from? Because he's so out of left field, and we don't know his whole history. We're getting tidbits of his history, but not his whole history yet. Don't have to give anything away, but where did he come from in your mind?
Yeah, he was also another person that sort of changed along the way. He was always a guy in a plastic ape mask. But when I originally wrote it, he was sort of a guy from a dinner theater. So he was all very theatrical with everything, and then it just wasn't working, so I ended up just cutting out all the verbs, in his dialogue, and then he sort of became who he is. But it was important with him. I wanted to put, this is a character that has a dream, and they believe in it, and they're going to white-knuckle this dream all the way to the end, and they fail. But what's that guy going to be like? The guy that refuses to give up, but he's not going to make it. So that's sort of where he came from. There's conversations with him and his wife in the 3rd issue that are, some of it taken from my own experiences when I had a video game store that didn't work out. So it was just sort of adding some of that stuff that I had from my own experience with this character, and he's just so much fun to write. I will tell you that I have a script. It's not finished, but for either a one-shot or a mini of just him. So you'll get his whole backstory.
Oh, that's awesome.
About where he came from. Yeah, he's like an old circus performer. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that because I love the scene. I did like it when he's talking. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. I was going to say you may see him again, perhaps.
Yeah, because what I was gonna say is I liked him. I liked it when you just showed the mask on the side of the car and he's talking. I guess it was to his wife in that scene where he's talking to his wife and the mask is just there. So you never see what's under the mask, and everybody wants to know what's under the mask. But it's like he's not whole without the mask. He is Sasquatch.
Yes.
In his mind, he is nobody else but Sasquatch.
Yeah, and there's like a scene and I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who hasn't read it, but like that's one part I really like in the last issue when Elise asks him like what's under the mask and he's just like Sasquatch.
Yeah.
Like he literally is the mask at this point.
That and he got his own catchphrase. He was like, "You got Sasquatched." You got Sasquatched. Because he's like bigger than life.
Phil's character design on him is completely insane. It's awesome.
It's almost like seeing
what I gave to him.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was gonna say what I gave to him was very simple. It was like it had the Planet of the Apes type plastic mask with the string, but it was more like a guy in a gorilla suit. You know, because I was like, that's always funny, guy in a gorilla suit. But he took this whole wrestling thing with the whole way that he designed it is perfect.
That's what I was about to say. Is he did remind me of like an old wrestler from like the 80s or 90s when like WWE would have like the Minotaur or one of those
George the Animal Steel
type characters where they were just like big, hairy, muscular, kind of brain dead people. That was I loved that.
They used to not all be cut back in the day.
Phil's a big wrestling fan, and he's dying to do a wrestling comic, so it's possible when this is over, you know, the two of us will get together and do some kind of wrestling thing.
Well, if
Panda, who's on our show, will love that. She's a huge wrestling
if anything that has to do with wrestling, Panda will tweet it. She will kickstart it. Whatever you need to be done with a wrestling comic, cool. Panda will do it. You just tell her what to do, she'll do it.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, myself, I was never a wrestling fan, but Phil was so into it and so passionate about it. It's like, I was like, I'll follow that. Plus, it'll be like the Sasquatch and be ridiculous.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, I've never understood that fan passion for wrestling. I mean, I don't, you know, I've had nothing against it. But I've always been fascinated because I was never into it really either. Well, probably because my dad would always make fun of it when it was on TV because my dad hated it. So I was never really into it either, but I see people that they would just die for wrestling. Yeah. It's just insane.
Yeah. I'm a fan.
I met Hulk Hogan this year too.
You did?
I met him at the airport.
And his hand was like as big as your head.
We were coming back from, his hand was like as big as my head, but we were coming back from Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con actually, and I was in the New York airport and we were walking and there was no crowd, no people, so I didn't think. I just walked up and he was just sitting there and I was like, that can't be Hulk Hogan because there's no crowd, and they're like, it's Hulk Hogan. So I went up there and I was like, I shook his hand and it's like this big. I mean, it's so big. Wow. And then I was like, do you mind if I take a picture with you? And I thought he was going to yell at me because he's just so big. I thought he was going to scream at me, and he's like, yeah. And he's like, is that your family? And I was like, yeah. And he was just like so nice. And I was like, I can't believe there's not like mobs of people here. And he's like, oh, everybody's really cool. And he was awesome. I was like, Hulk Hogan.
Well, that's cool.
I mean, because I had an action figure of him when I was little. So even though I'm a girl and I had an action figure, so he was kind of like a role model. So I was like, yeah, that's kind of what I had.
still has an action figure.
That's awesome.
I still eat my vitamins and drink my milk and done all that good stuff.
He still looks wonderful. So it's like, I don't know.
That's only because he covers up the bald spot. He covers up the baldness with the bandana. No, I'm a big wrestling fan too. Because I get up early for work, I don't get to watch it as much as I used to, and I do miss all the larger than life characters like Coco Beware and all them. I miss Coco Beware.
Nice. So many people I know. Yeah, so many people I know that are into comics just tend to sort of gravitate towards wrestling too. I mean, I guess it's the whole superhero thing, you know.
I think so. It's a good transfer.
Yeah.
It's a good medium transfer because they are larger than life characters. They give them attributes that are superhero like, you know, taking mass amounts of punishment and still being able to go forth and do what they got to do. So I can see that that connection, so to speak. Now, with you being an indie writer, what kind of challenges have you been facing trying to get this book out there? I know you like we said before we got on, you've got, they're selling it at Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash and a couple other stores, and that you've been going out there and kind of pitching it to the stores. What kind of challenges? Because we know, if this is a Marvel book, it's going on the shelf no matter what. But from an indie standpoint, how do you work that? How do you get your word out there about how great this book is?
Yeah, I mean, that's tough. I mean, any of the type of marketing, and there's certain sites, unlike you guys who are having me on, and thank you again, but they're just not interested in anything that isn't, Marvel or DC or maybe Image. So you have like a lot of really good, and now like there's tons of amazing, independent comics coming out now, but they're not covered for whatever reason. So it's hard to get any sort of notice for stuff. The biggest thing, though, that I see is sort of a financial one, just because you're not going to make your money back. You're going to, as you make each book, you're going to lose money each time. So that gets, it's very hard because in order to promote yourself, you have to go to cons and you have to set up. And you're lucky if you make the money for your table back, let alone the money that you paid to print the books. So you sort of start out at zero and just keep going down. So you have to just, keep plowing through it and just trying to do things like this and meet people and meet other creators. And then hopefully, at some point it'll all work out. But it gets very depressing. You spend hundreds of hours on something and you're passionate about it and you get it out there. And then even when it's like with our book, we were very, very fortunate with reviews and stuff. People seem to like it. They read it. They write about it. But that doesn't always translate into sales. I mean, it's just, unfortunately, it's just the way it is.
Right.
So that's always a big sort of roadblock.
But with something
I would encourage all panel-to-panel viewers to seek the book out. Because if you watch me and you watch this show, I'm like one of a couple of indie comic reviewers for FTN. There's not very many. It's like me and Panda and maybe one other person. So I encourage you to seek this book out because it's fantastic. It's really worth seeking out and getting. It's really professionally done. It's well made, and the art and the story are great. So I would encourage all the viewers of Panel to Panel to go seek out the books.
I approve that message. That's going to be that's going to pull quote right there. Yeah.
It's right up my alley though, because I read a ton of indie stuff, so
yeah.
I love it.
And I think another challenge for us in particular is it doesn't necessarily match with anything else that's out there. So it's not something you can easily do like an elevator pitch for or something. It's not a superhero book. Like there's no, you can't say, well, it's just like this. I mean, a lot of people, you guys compared it to some books, in the beginning. I don't know if that was before we started recording or after. Once in a while, people will sort of compare it to Chew. But I don't even really see that as, I think the art too, and just because it's sort of a quirky type thing, I think that's sort of where people draw a line, but it's not easy to sort of, pin down. And I think maybe that hurts it a little bit too.
Well, I think especially
I
messaged
these. I was just going to say, I messaged them, and when I first started reading it, because I had just discovered Chew about 2 months ago, and I was like, oh, it kind of reminds me just a little bit of it. And I was like, I'm so excited. Another book that I can love and be obsessed over. Because I've been like obsessed over, not really mainly DC and Marvel, but Image books I've really been like obsessed over. So,
cool, thank you. Yeah, that's an amazing book.
It was great. Yeah, and also, like, I noticed that I really connected right in the beginning, and said, like, sometimes I have to read it for a while, and then I'm like, but right at the beginning, I was like, yes, this is like right up my alley, and I knew it was right up their alley too, and I was like, ooh, you guys have to read this, So it's
cool, thank you.
It's awesome.
Yeah, because I was mentioning to them before the show, I had picked up this new indie book called Curse. This is from Boom Studios. I had just seen it.
The werewolf?
Yeah. I saw it in previews, and I was like, okay, the cover looks cool. Previews really didn't have a big blurb on it, so to speak. So I was just like, I'm gonna give it a shot, and I'm reading through it, and it's an indie book, and I love it. And it's one of those ideas, whereas when you look at Marvel and DC, it's, the same characters that have been there for 60, 70 years. Very few new characters are coming out. So especially with the indies, we're getting new heroes, new storylines, different spins on storylines.
Yeah.
That people need. Like, I don't think you'd ever see something in Marvel like Chew. I don't think you could have Captain
Saga or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and that nothing against Marvel or DC. I like that stuff too, but I love the idea of new, myths and new heroes and stuff and new sort of stories. So it's just like such a great time for that type of book now too. So seeing all the success with Image and everything, it's great.
Yeah, it's like today I had to defend Rocket Girl, which is a new book that's out on by Image called Rocket Girl. And I absolutely love it. And people are like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And I had to kind of like defend it, saying, you know what, it's 3 issues. This is a new spin on a story. You got to give it time to blossom, because there is nothing to base it off of. Whereas if you read Superman, you can base Superman now off of all that history. But if it's something brand new, there's nothing to base it off of. So you have to give it time to sink in on what's actually going on. And even now with your book, there's so many moving pieces of it. You have to keep reading because each issue you're getting a new piece of that puzzle. So, you may only have the outline right now. You don't have any of the inside of the puzzle yet. If that makes sense.
Well,
that makes sense.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you can go.
I was just going to say that every once in a while you meet guys that like comic fans that are exclusively like just hardline DC, or they're exclusively just Marvel or the big two. They won't even take a chance on some of the new stuff, and it's like you're really missing out because there's so many different genres available now. It's like the comics are just open for anything anymore. I mean, it's like stuff like Sex Criminals is.
Yes.
It's bank robbers that can stop time with sex. It's insane.
Yeah, that's such an amazing.
But I mean, the genres are just wide open for. I mean, it's you're really missing out if you're not branching out and reading other stuff anyway. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with that, like I never understood the sort of being loyal to the characters versus the creator. You know what I mean? It's like, if you really like the way this person writes or this artist draws, follow them to their other, books. And if they have an independent book, please help them because even with these, if you have a book on Image, it doesn't mean anything because you still have to pull big numbers to try to make any kind of money back. So, all that, supporting someone independently goes a lot farther than, what you're going to do if you're throwing it to Warner Brothers or Disney.
And that's exactly right. Especially like we've talked so many times. One of our favorite writers is Jonathan Hickman. We bow down to the great Jonathan Hickman, and he writes. He's got a book. He's got books at Marvel. He's got books at Image, and he's got books at Avatar currently out right now. He's got books currently in publication in 3 different publishers. So following his work to those others, I mean, I don't know, Chief. I don't know, or Jules, if you've ever read anything from Avatar before God Is Dead came out. But now I want to check out their other books.
No, that's what got me to buy the first Avatar book I bought, because Hickman went there.
Now, with like you said, your book is both print and digital, and it's on Comixology. Do you prefer it being in one format or the other, or do you like it being in all formats, so no matter who's got it, they can read it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, whatever you're comfortable reading is fine with me. So if you want it, digitally and that's how you want to read it, great. If you want it print, that's cool too. So whatever. I mean, right now, when we do like the single issues, we do really small print runs. So if you want to get those, like we have the pre-orders open for the new one, you got to do it because I'm only going to print, so many of those. But with the trade, we'll always collect those so you can get the whole trade of the first book in print. You can't get the single issues in print anymore. But yeah, they'll always be available. And if you want it, if you'd rather do Comixology, I have no problem with it. I'm just happy people are reading it,
What do you personally prefer to read?
I like print, as far as like collections and trades and hardcovers and all that kind of stuff. But as far as the like floppies, the only floppy in print that I'm reading now is Mind Management. Just because Matt Kinn is playing with the book, the book itself is part of the puzzle, and I love that. But as far as like Sex Criminals I'm reading and all that kind of stuff, I get that over Comixology. The singles.
As long as they're on there. As long as they are on there.
Yeah. Read them.
But I like, I don't, if I'm going to buy a collection or if I'm going to buy, I buy like omnibuses and stuff like that, then I want that in print.
Mm.
What about you guys? Are you all print or?
I prefer print. I like to hold comics. I just like It's because I have for over 30 years been reading them, and that's just what I'm comfortable with. But I do have some digital stuff on my tablet. Like I've probably got, I don't know, probably anymore. I probably got 50 or 60 digitals I haven't read, just like as a backup if I'm stuck somewhere.
Yeah.
Then I've got a stack of comics to read. So I'm not against digital, but I read print more. I enjoy it more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like both. I think for me, it's better digital because it seems like I'm always somewhere like Walmart, somewhere I don't want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, look, I could just read really quick a comic. Like, 'cause on my iPhone, it's so fast of a read that, like, if you do the panel view, you can just get through it so quick. And, like, I just read a comic while I was waiting customer service at Walmart. So,
Yeah.
and I'm always out. I have 2 kids, so I'm always, like, doctor's appointments here and there. So for me, I always like, if I carry them, I'm going to get them messed up. They're going to get mangled. So, but I do like to have them in my hand too, just because then, I mean, they have a smell. You can smell them, you know. But I don't know. So I'm like 50-50. I like both.
I like to hold my comics. I like to hold them and feel them and read them. And like Joel said, I've got, and Chief, you can detest this because you just got your Golden Age book in the mail. The smell of a Golden Age
Fear
book.
22.
Nice.
The smell of a Golden Age book is unlike anything in this world. The old newsprint smell.
Yeah.
But I do have some digitals like I've got when Marvel came out and they released like the Amazing Spider-Man #1, Incredible Hulk #1, all their #1 issues on digital. I bought them because I said I don't know if I'm ever going to own an Amazing Spider-Man #1 or own an Incredible Hulk #1, but at least I have it digital. I can read it and say I've read it digital, and you know. So I like digital, but I prefer in my stacks here next to me. You can't see them, but stacks and stacks and stacks and boxes of comics. I love just because for me, I love the therapeutic of putting them in bags and filing them away in their boxes and looking through them. I love that. That is one of my favorite things to do, and I do it after every show. After we get off the air, I go through and I inventory my comics of the week.
I will add, like,
That's
with my comics, with the comics I have from when I was younger that I still have in my office, like, I have 3 kids, and, like, showing them, you can't do that. Like, it's not the same as if I had them digitally, flipping through a iPad to show them comics I had when I was a kid, but literally showing them the book and the old ads, and everything like that can't be beat. I mean, now I'm probably robbing, myself of that in the future. Not, buying the floppies. I will add, though, as a creator, you have to have floppy. Like, you have to print. I mean, Deadhorse was the first book comic that I ever wrote. And when I first did it, I was like, oh, you know what, we'll just do it digitally. It's going to be cheaper. We don't have to worry about print. We went to, like, a con or something, or a sign. I forget what it was. It was some event. You're trying to tell people, give them a card and tell them to go to your website. Like, nobody cares. Like, nobody wants you can't sign a PDF. You know what I mean? So, like, you have to have something. You have to have a floppy. So if anybody out here is listening and you're thinking about doing comics, you have to print. That's a necessity. And you make more money off the print than you do digital.
And when you go to those conventions, like when you started going to the conventions, did you after the first issue?
That was me.
That's dropping over here.
When you went to like conventions, did you like right after you finished the first issue where you're like, okay, now we have to go to conventions, or did you say, let's wait and get 1 or 2 issues so we can have 2 issues out there on the table, or 3 issues, or was it 1 issue we're going to conventions?
Yeah, that's interesting because the way we did it, and we sort of had a long sort of history. It started out as a web comic. This is when I was just going to do it, or Phil and I were just going to do it digitally. It was a black and white web comic, and we released 2 days a week. And we went to the first 3 issues. So we had the first 3 issues already inked. And at that point we decided, hey, you know what, we're going to color this, and we got David. And we're going to release them as, regular comics the way you would at a convention. So we already had 3 in the can, so to speak, before we released that first one. So we were able to sort of come out, within like month to month, for those first 6.
Okay.
But yeah.
Now in the trade for your book, there's some of that black and white, some of those black and white panels are in the back in the extra stuff too, I think.
Yeah, and because Phil, who's ridiculously talented, he's the artist, but he actually colored the first 3 issues himself. But because he's doing the pencils and the inks and the colors, he was like, I can't do this. So that's when we found David Halverson, who I actually ended up working with on another book too. So it's been really lucky to find David and Phil. So.
Now I think it said Phil is a survivalist or something. There was like it's in his bio. It was like, we don't know much about him, and his mysterious survivalist ways or something like that.
Yeah, that's fun.
Oh,
we all have to write our own bios. I hate that's like the part they don't tell you about how terrible it is to make comics when you have to write your own bio. Just like,
we all had to write one for Following the Nerd too, so it was. Mine's pretty similar. I think I wrote it in like 3 minutes and just sent it to Chris.
I was just like, I like comics. Yeah. I like to read comics.
That's all you need on
Me like comic book.
Sasquatch.
Me like read.
Sasquatch like comic book. Now, when you were writing this, is there a specific part that you absolutely, when you were writing it, it was like your favorite part so far that you've written? Or is it just the whole thing? It's just like, oh, I love it all.
I liked most of it. I think if I had to pick sort of my favorite scene of the first book anyway was in the 5th book, the Wake chapter, when Pike sort of goes from the little lady luncheonette through the kitchen into like a funeral home. Mm-hmm. Like that whole sort of alternate reality dream sequence. That was the most fun. And one of the things, and I don't know if you guys noticed it, like when there's like newspapers and you can zoom in on the digital and read some of the headlines from the newspapers. I actually put more of that stuff in the new issue. There's like a point where one of the characters is reading an email, and from afar it just looks like text, but you can actually zoom it up and then read the email. So I like to put little sort of secrets and hidden little Easter eggs throughout.
That's cool.
Cool. Yeah, that was probably my favorite. And then the new book, there's a book that's sort of mentioned called Laser Eagles. Mm-hmm. There's an excerpt from Laser Eagles in the new book, and it's just a text thing, and it's so stupid. But that was like the most fun.
I liked it. I read all that stuff. I went through. That was one of the things that kind of reminded me of the book Nowhere Men. Is like through the book, you'll just have like a full page of like a newspaper article, or like an interview with somebody, or with the band of the song, you get the interview piece. The song that plays throughout, and that's kind of like in Nowhere Men they kind of do that. Like they'll have like a whole spread is just like a magazine article like this that folds out, and you gotta and it fills you in on little clues here and there. That was, I don't know if you guys were aware of Nowhere Men or if any of you read it, but it kind of reminded me of the way that they laid that out too. There's little elements of it that I saw.
Yeah, I think like with those things, and each issue has something. I think it just helps with the world building. And if you don't want to read it, it's okay. You don't have to read it. But if you do, you get a lot more out of it.
Right. I love that stuff. I love that just when they just throw something that from the book right there for you to read too. It's great.
Yeah, and I like to create things and then reuse them. So like I think it's a second issue, there's like a website where it's an article about the senator who died, but then that same website, a reporter from that same website makes an appearance in the other issue, and there's fake like headlines in the bottom that also correspond to other parts of the story. Like in the interview you mentioned with the songwriters, they mention Kent, who you meet later at like chapter 4, and he's like this old 80s dude. So like all that sort of interconnected stuff I like.
That's another great character, by the way.
Yes. Oh, I love
that guy.
Yeah.
I just wish I got to bring him back because I love that guy.
I think she met Lionel Richie.
Lionel Richie, yeah, I was about to say that. I think I met Lionel Richie.
I think I just met Lionel Richie. That was great.
Cool. And I think that helps. Like if you do stuff like that, you get like you reward a reread. So it's not like one time and you're done. If you read it the second time, hopefully people are like, oh, okay, that means that, or that that's a callback to something else.
Kind of throw some realism into it for me too. Like if this really exists in this world is more fleshed out. Like this article, here's the newspaper in this world. I think that's great. I love that stuff.
Cool. Yeah. I'm glad you guys liked it.
Yeah, and I also like, with the character Elise, I like how she, even though all this stuff's going on, she's kind of like reveling in it. She kind of loves this weird adventure. Like when they see the temple and she just looks at Edgar and is like, race you to the top. For her, it's just like, this is so different than what she had in her home life. So she's like, this is like she's just so happy to have this because it's so different than what she had at home. And I think she's my favorite character other than Sasquatch is Elise. I absolutely love that character.
Yeah, and for me, like, I have the most fun writing her. Pike is fine, but a lot of times I would want to just do Elise because I have the most fun definitely with her.
So would you say she's like the observer? You kind of see it kind of through her eyes, all the craziness. She's kind of like the straight man of the story, so to speak. Right, and her role will grow a lot more in the second book. We'll learn a lot more about her.
Oh, awesome. All right.
Nice.
I know,
No
Jules, you have decided to put in some questions of your own that we have aptly named Some Days You Just Can't Get Rid of a Bomb questions, I think.
Yeah.
So why don't you go ahead, Jules, and you lead us into that one.
Okay. So yeah, we decided that we're going to start asking questions this week, just, and we can all answer it. So if you were in a post-apocalyptic world and you had one hero to save you, who would you pick? That's the first question.
Okay, is this to me first, or are we going through?
To you first, sir.
How does it go?
You go first.
You can go first. You go first. I gotta think.
All right. I would think if it's a post-apocalyptic world, a lot of stuff's not working. You're going to run out of resources quickly. So whoever it is has to have, superpowers, but it can't be like a gadget-based person. So I would have to say Silver Surfer, and then he could pick me up and we could just take off, because who wants to hang out here? We'll just travel around the universe, solve crimes, just me and the Silver Surfer hanging out. It'd be great. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah. Great answer.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I just want to solve crimes with the Silver Surfer and get into hijinks,
I didn't even think of
Spend
him.
the Earth from Galactus.
I might need to change my answer now.
I'll put mine out there. I believe in Rick Grimes. That's all I gotta say is I believe in Rick Grimes.
Yeah.
Chief, you can pick Rick Grimes too, man. I just know I believe if it's
you're
supposed
gonna pick one, you have to pick Daryl. I mean, Rick loses it. Daryl's
I'm not picking Daryl. I'm picking Rick Grimes, the one-handed master of the apocalypse.
I'm going to go with Han Solo then.
Go ahead.
Because he has a Wookiee and the Millennium Falcon, and you can just zoom off away from the apocalypse.
I don't know. Daryl's starting to look like a Wookiee. His hairdo, he's starting to look like a Wookiee. Your turn, Jules.
Originally I was going to go with Wolverine, but now I think I'm going to go with Superman, because Superman can fly me away as well, so I wouldn't have to worry about anything. But also, I love Superman, so I think it would be great if he hung out with me for a day or forever.
I thought about him, because he would be pretty useful.
There's an underlying thing there,
He's
Jules.
the obvious choice, right?
There's an underlying thing there. If it's in a post-apocalyptic world, that means Lois Lane is probably dead, which means you would have a shot at the love of Superman.
Yeah!
I was thinking Rick Grimes because, his story is literally in a post-apocalyptic world, so who was the most experienced at living in it?
Right.
That was my train of thought. Go with Rick Grimes of The Walking Dead.
I had two, but I went with Rick because the other one I was thinking of the Superior Spider-Man, but I think, even though I love him, I think Doc Ock telling me about how stupid everybody is and how this could have been avoided, this whole apocalypse, if they just listened to him and did what he said, would get old really, really quickly.
Yeah, get old quickly.
That's why I went with Rick Grimes. All right.
Rick Grimes.
You got another one for us, Jules?
we have one more. So if you found out that Darth Vader was your father, would you embrace it or would you disown him?
No, I would embrace it. You have to embrace it. Can you imagine, especially if you're younger and you had Darth Vader at your Little League game and stuff, and Darth Vader at play dates, just hanging out in the corner, or when you're in the car with Darth Vader and you're both silent, but you just hear that dumb breathing the whole time. That would be awesome. Yeah, you have to accept that. Borrowing the car from Darth Vader would be fantastic.
Finding out those times, Vader finds out you know, if you smoked, you know, he finds the cigarette or something. He's like, and you have to have that heart to heart.
Who taught you how to do this?
Or the first time you get your heart broken, Darth Vader consoling you after the first time you get your heart broken from that girl or guy who you're just madly in love with. Darth Vader's gotta console you. And I would hit him up for all those years of back allowances he hasn't paid.
I would embrace it as well because, I mean, come on. Pretty much Darth Vader's son, you can do anything you want. And it'll probably teach you how to force choke your enemies and all kinds of cool things like that. Force choking mainly. Yeah. That's what I want to learn mostly. That's why I would embrace it. Just for the force choking. And the lightsaber ownership.
True.
How about you,
I
Joel?
think I would embrace it just because I would feel bad if I didn't, because he'd be all sad. So I think I would definitely have to embrace it.
Jules comes up with a nice way to answer it somehow.
Yeah. You break his heart. He's just sitting there. It's like sad Vader. I was like, oh, it's all right, buddy.
I'm just thinking of all the evil I could do with that power. Jules is trying to figure out how to make somebody feel good.
But can you imagine Jules getting married and Darth Vader walking her down the aisle? And he just, real quickly as he's walking away, he just kind of force chokes just a little bit the groom. He's just like watching you.
That'd be a good wedding with the Imperial March playing and everything. That sort of works.
Oh, and the Emperor could be the priest.
Do that all the time.
The Emperor could oversee the marriage.
We had Katie Cook on, and she was telling us that she had a Star Wars themed wedding. So she shared that with us, and yeah.
But she said we'd never see the pictures.
Yeah, I saw one of them. I saw one of those pictures, but she said we'd never see the other one. There is a picture of her with in her wedding dress with a lightsaber, but she said we'll never see any of the other pictures. I'm gonna get it out of her though next time she's on.
Yeah. You sent that one.
I googled it, and I didn't see anything. So
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you. Now, with her, the greatest story was about the crazy con goer who had the marriage album of her and David Tennant.
Oh, yeah.
So, wow.
We were talking about
Photoshop pictures of her and David Tennant on
Which that's a good question.
Brony fans, but
that's a good question. If you could have a weird geeky celebrity relationship, who would it be with? That's a good question. That's a question we never thought of. If there was someone that you could have a relationship with from one of the geek fandoms, who would it be?
Right, I would have to Photoshop me and David Tennant in the wedding dress. Clearly, that's everybody's answer, right?
I'd pick Tom Baker, the Tom Baker doctor.
Oh yeah, come on, yeah, of course.
I don't know.
Better hair.
Matching scarves.
Well, hello there, little one.
Just the same one wrapped around both of us.
That's even better.
I just saw a little guest appearance behind you, Eric. I just saw a little guest appearance behind you. We had a little guest appearance behind you.
Is that Hi, Riley. My daughter just entered the office.
I had a guest appearance on, so.
Did she pop over?
She popped over, and it's fine. My daughter's popped on before. Jules' kids have popped on before.
My kids are always on.
But I was going to say, I just saw a picture. Felicia Day cut her hair into a pixie cut. So I'm even more in love with Felicia Day now than I was earlier because now she has a pixie cut. So that's mine. I've already denounced my love of Felicia Day on this show many times. So that's me. Chief's going with Tom Baker.
You have to get her as a guest.
Tom Baker.
I've been trying. I have been trying. You don't know how hard I've been trying.
I think I'm gonna have to go with Hugh Jackman. That would be my guy. I don't know. I like a lot of people. Either Hugh Jackman or Johnny Depp. That's mine.
I don't know. Lady Sif's the one I can think of right off the top of my head.
She's going to be on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Chief. She's coming to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I heard.
She's going to be on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I heard the DVR is set, my friend.
So with that, what are the tell people once again where they can find your book, how they can get it, because we want everyone to get this book.
Yeah, the easiest thing to do is if you go to deadhorsecomic.com. From there, you can pre-order the new one. You can get the old ones. All the links are there and everything. If you're looking for stuff that I did outside of Deadhorse, you can go to ericgrissom.com, and that has links to some short stories I did, some other comics. Planet Gigantic's another book that should be coming out later this year. You can get Deadhorse from there. There's a book I did with this artist Claire Connolly that you can get now called Chickens, and that's also pay what you want. So all my stuff's there. But before I forget, thank you guys too for having me on. This has been awesome.
Oh, not a problem.
Oh, thank you for coming.
Thanks for coming on.
Jules, were we talking about Planet Gigantic, or was that a different time? I'm trying to remember. Because we would like to have you back on whenever that goes to previews. I think we're talking.
It's going to be the first book I've done that'll be in previews, and that's coming out through Action Lab. But yeah, it's not going to be till May, so it makes more sense if that's cool with you guys.
Yeah, that is perfectly fine.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Right on.
And of course, I
love it. So.
I have tons of previews around here. I'm hoping that they pick it as a spotlight, because they usually pick spotlights for books. Yeah. So maybe if we should all write the previews as a spotlight.
Cool. Yeah, it's definitely a new experience. Definitely looking forward to seeing it in there.
And definitely once it's about to come out, if you can let Jules know, we would love to do a write-up for it as a preview for Following the Nerd. We can actually put it out on Following the Nerd as, hey, look what's coming out. We would love to do that.
Oh, yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, I'll definitely do that.
Okay. So with that...
Thank you.
Sounds good.
So with that, guys, do you have any other questions you would like to get out there on the table right now?
Oh, did we do we had a bunch of questions. Did we do the print comics dying question? Did we answer that? Or did we,
I think we did.
We didn't do that.
Maybe we did.
Did we? I would say they're not dying.
I don't think so either. I hear that though.
Yeah.
I hear people say print comics, digital's the wave of the future, print comics are dying. I don't think so. I think that I see more people at my shop all the time. Comics are selling. I don't know which ones people are getting rich off of them, but they're selling.
Well, it's like I said earlier when we were talking about the indie books, it seems a lot of people who are out there at the cons, they're self-published comic book artists. They're going digital just because it's easier to kind of, I guess, distribute it to people and get it out there to people than what I guess they think damn print. It's easier. Oh, here's our website. Go download the first issue or download the second issue. But I think you have to, if you go to, like you said, when you go to a convention, having something that you can put in somebody's hand, makes a big difference.
I think in terms of like Marvel and DC, I can definitely see somewhere down the line, floppies disappearing in print for them, and pushing trades and hardcovers in bookstores and that kind of thing. But for independents, like I don't see floppies going anywhere. And I think there'll always be trades and collected editions. I mean, that's how I want.
And if you could write a book for the big two of an established hero, would you want to, or is there one that you have in mind that you'd always wanted to write?
I definitely would do it in a heartbeat if somebody asked me. I do like doing the creator-owned stuff and making the stuff up, but a lot of people don't know who I am, so a work for hire thing would be awesome. I would love to do like the Fantastic Four or Doctor Strange or Silver Surfer, which I brought up before. But I mean that would be awesome. I mean, at some point maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, but it's a great way though to get your name out there. For a lot of people, they start independent and they go and they get popular and they make a move back. And I think we're seeing a lot of that stuff, especially with the Image Expo, and you see a lot of really great writers coming back and bringing books back to Image.
It seems kind of like no holds barred anymore. Like writers are write for multiple companies and write their creator-owned stuff and.
Yeah. Hold on, Chief. The Red October is back again. Hold on, Chief. The Red October is back again.
Sean Connery's looking for me.
Yeah, we talked about him in his mankini, so Sean Connery's after us now. We talked about him in his mankini. Sometimes we get the Red October hurting us.
If anybody doesn't know what Zardoz is, go to Google Images and just type it in, and you're welcome. Just take a look at the image results that are going to come back.
Yes, do it.
Do it. That was like his second post-Bond movie, I think he did. That was like the second movie he did after Bond. And that's what he had long hair, and he kind of lit into. It looks like if you took his character from Highlander and just stripped him of all his clothes.
Right.
That's kind of what it looks like.
That's what he was wearing under that Spanish.
Villalobos. Well, maybe
he's still wearing it.
He probably is in his retirement. He's lounging in retirement in that.
It's just like a hard cut to Sean Connery now in that outfit, still like watching the computer, just like.
It's like one of those things that they say, "We'll look at the screen really close," and then it jumps out at you.
He's like, "Panel to panel has brought me out of retirement. I must reply."
Junior.
Oh, well, maybe I can bring Eric in when I pitch my Howard the Duck idea to Marvel, because they need to bring back Howard the Duck. That's what they need to do. Maybe I'll bring him in and we can write it together.
Nice.
But
I've never seen the Howard the Duck movie. My wife was making fun of me that she doesn't understand how I've never seen it.
Oh,
I haven't
do you
seen
like
either.
it, or is it terrible?
I love it.
I mean, it's always been.
I love it. Yes, it is horrible. Yes, it is campy. But when you read when you read the comic books of Howard the Duck, that's what his books were. They were campy. They were over the top. I
don't know a lot about Howard the Duck, and I just read Marvel, the Untold Story, that Sean Howe book, was just amazing. And just hearing all the crazy Howard the Duck stuff. It's like it just sounds.
Jules, make sure he gets the link to the video I made yesterday of my Howard the Duck collection. Make sure he gets that link so he can go.
Spin has an incredible Howard collection.
I'll send it. Yeah.
Awesome.
In fact, that's where I got my Howard the Duck number
Spin
one.
Has what is you've got the Howard and Beverly Get It On panels in that is it in the magazine?
That was Howard the Duck magazine number one, where him and Beverly Switzler sealed the deal. It was the first, to my knowledge, the first duck on female love scene.
He's shown that panel on the show.
First duck female love scene in comics. So, yes. But, sir, thank you, Mr. Grissom, Eric, thank you for being on the show with us tonight. It's been wonderful. We absolutely love your book. And we definitely want to have you back on when, of course, when Planet Gigantic comes out, and then once you get more with the second story arc, we'd love to have you on with that to talk about that as well.
Oh, that would be awesome! Thank you again. I had a great time.
So
thanks for coming.
Cool.
Thank you.
It was fun.
So that'll do it for us tonight on Panel to Panel. Make sure you check us out every week on followingthenerd.com. Make sure you go check out Space Chief talking about his 10 million Bigfoot bounty, the 10 million Bigfoot bounty.
$10 million Bigfoot bounty.
$10 million.
Unbelievable amount. I've been commenting on that show. It's 2 episodes in with Dean Cain, and it's wacky. So if you want to watch me make fun of Bigfoot for, I don't know, like 14 minutes, you go over to my channel and watch that.
So make sure you go check that out. Check out all of our stuff every week. So until next time, good evening, good night, and good luck.